This is just a little walkthrough of my template that I use to start every bitwig project. I just have a few devices and workflow things that I've set up beforehand that help me on every single song. And it's also a really simple, out of the way template. It doesn't have lots of effects, instruments, anything too crazy from the get go, and it lets me start from a blank slate every time. So just thought I'd share, and maybe you can get inspiration from what I've done, ideas for your own template, or I'm going to upload my template onto Google Drive and you can just take it directly. I have one version with the plugins that I use, then I'll make another one with just stock devices. So I have it set up so that when I start a new project, it will use the template, and I have it set to my simple starter is what I called it. And when I start a new project, it'll load it up. It's pretty quick because there's not too much to it. And the majority of things happen on the master channel, which I'll show in a second. Then also there's this reference track feature, which is pretty neat. Helps you to A/B one song or your reference track to the mix. But for starters, I just have done some quality of life things that I prefer. For example, I don't really like using the clip launcher workflow. So I have that closed with 120 BPM. I have it looping at 8 bars, just nice starter stuff. And so, yeah, the master chain, everything is off by default, which I like because it keeps latency low. Most of these don't add any latency anyway, but it keeps latency low, and CPU doesn't chew up CPU until you want to actually add stuff on. So I have clippers and limiters that you can turn on. So once I've enabled it, I have an effects selector just ready to go with a few different clippers. They're all set to a soft clip setting. So G clip is the one I usually throw on because it's so CPU light and just works. And sometimes I like to soft clip or hard clip, but usually soft clip my pre-master just on the way in, because I do that sometimes because, like, if I have whatever instruments, I might have like multiple buses. This is maybe like drums, this is maybe instruments and stuff, and each of those respectively will be clipped or limited. When you combine them together, sum them together, they make more peaks. So then usually when I'm going into the master, I want to just take those peaks off even before the limiter. That's something I do a lot of the time. It depends. I just mess around and see if it works. So yeah, here it's just nice because you can flip through the clippers. And then similarly, I have some limiters loaded up. When I do turn it on, it defaults to a peak limiter because for one, this is a native device. It's nice. And also it's like CPU, it's pretty CPU light, and yeah, it's just good to throw on to catch those peaks while I'm mixing. When I actually make it to the mastering or mixdown phase, I'll usually swap this out for the Pro L just so that I can do more stuff. But the Pro L adds a bunch of latency, you can see, and it's also pretty intensive on the CPU. So it's nice to not be producing into that until I have to be. So that's why I have it disabled by default. You can turn it on whenever you want. So then after the effects that I just commonly use on pretty much every mix, I have some visualizers. So right here I have oscilloscopes set up, a couple different ones, but I'll just show. If I get a track to play, there, let's just go over there, that should work. Turn it down. Yeah, it starts playing right there in line on the master. So it's pretty convenient because as you're producing, you can just flip over and get a quick visualization of what's going on. I'll show that second effect in a second, a couple minutes. I also have some spectrograms that work similarly. Just it's the normal spectrum with here it's mid-side, I don't actually use either of these that much, though they are nice to have sometimes, because I have mini meters open on my other screen almost all the time. And it basically does the same thing. Over there we have a mid-side spectrogram showing. And then over here we have a pretty similar oscilloscope thing. But it's still neat to have that there. And sometimes I don't have both monitors going. So then similar to what I said about FabFilter, when I get to the mixing or mastering phase, rather than using this, I might want to zero in on more details, and Span usually does a good job of that because there's all kinds of settings that you can specify and stuff. So I have that loaded up there as well. Just a convenience thing. Then also loudness meter, throw it on there by default. Correlometer, it helps check for each frequency band whether things are in phase or out of phase. And yeah, just visualizers that I like to have, and I don't want to have to like type in and remember, despite it not being that difficult. I just like having them there. Then now is where it kind of gets neat. These are some devices that I made. This one I called Low Inspect, and basically it just takes the song and maybe let's go over here. Basically just low passes the mix. I have a bunch of low passes going. Each of these is a 4-pole low pass. And then I can just change the cutoff frequency to focus a bit more on the higher basses, low basses. I turned the gain down on it just because the filtering can sometimes cause stuff to peak over 0 and clip. So that keeps stuff sounding clear. But yeah, then the other thing is gentle. It just turns off 3 of the 4 low passes so that you can hear a bit more of the high end than otherwise you can. And yeah, neat. It's really nice to just get to zero in on what's going on the low end and make sure that you do have solid bass and kick stuff. Love that. Use it all the time. This one is, I called it simulations, and it's just a bunch of different effects on the sound. Firstly, simple mono. That just takes a tool and it puts it to 0% width when you click it on. Then also there's a mid-range. It just high passes, low passes the mix, and so you're just focusing on the mid frequencies, and it helps me to balance what's going on in there a bit better. And then also I have a sort of fake limiter there, just because those guys similarly can cause peaks that go above 0 when you high pass or low pass stuff. And this will just keep it down. It's a compressor with really fast attack, and then a clipper afterwards just to make sure it actually doesn't go over 0. It's not perfect, but it works pretty good. And I just didn't want to add any latency, which is why I did the fake limiter. Then this one is, I think, one of the coolest, probably the coolest thing. Let's just close all this. Let's see. Is the club simulation. And this one's cool because sometimes, like late at night, if I'm working on stuff, or if I just can't, if I don't have speakers in over-air speakers that I can listen to stuff really loud, I don't really know how like the bass sounds, how it reverberates in the room and stuff. And so the club sim, it's an impulse response that someone has taken of a club, and I'm running my entire mix through it when I turn this on through the convolution, and I can hear how does the bass sound in a room. So let's just demo that. That's really cool. I use it all the time, just to double check. Like, I've kind of like learned what this room sounds like you learn many rooms, and I can sort of tell when something's a bit off because I've mixed in this room for hours. Sometimes I'll just throw this on while I'm making stuff for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and like essentially produce in the room, but on my headphones. Um, Very nice thing that I liked it. So I found these impulse responses, I think, in some Reddit thread somewhere. And when I clicked the link, they didn't exist anymore. And so I think I had to go into Wayback Machine, Internet Archive, to find the website a couple of years back, download the files from there. So it was a bit of a process, but now I have them, and they're in the template. You can get them. There's a left and right impulse response. They're pretty similar. It's of the same room, but one of them, I think they recorded it from like the back left of the club and the other from the back right. And individually, they each like seemed a bit off balance. They like are weighted to the left or right speaker, sort of. So I thought it sounded better to combine them together. Then after I combined them together, I did some tone stuff. I made it a bit brighter, and also have a limiter that it's being run into when I turn it on. It turns this guy on. Again, the fake limiter that doesn't add any latency. So when you're typing keys, when you're playing on your keyboard, it's not, there's less input delay. But yeah, just limiting so that sometimes when it does wonky stuff and peaks way over, it doesn't go too crazy. But yeah, that's a really nice thing to have. And that's the last effect that I have on the master. One thing to know is like I don't actually use these buttons directly. I have track level macros on the master. So these are project level macros. And so I can just hit these guys and turn them on. It also enables the device, the chain for each of them. So if I'm playing, let's just turn this down again. Mono. Now it's mono and mid. Even if I'm like somewhere else in the project, they're always there. Can flip them on, off. Club simulation. Low focus. And yeah, that's just so nice because when you have like a really big project, lots of tracks, lots of groups and stuff, and you're working way up here, it would be annoying to like, it is annoying to go back to the master and then make your changes that you want just to listen and then go back up to what you're working on. You have to go back and turn it off. So here, like when you're right in the middle of your project, anywhere. Oh, goodness gracious. That was a lot of sounds. You can just change it from on the track. These two, they work together. I don't think any of the others kind of work in combo. It has to be one or the other. Yeah, so that is the master and such. Then there's the reference track thing. I could get a different song to find one that's similar. This guy should work. Just make it, I don't know, there or something. And one thing is I have to kind of gain match them if it's, usually I have them at full, but just for your ears, I'm keeping it down a bit. Yeah, so if I have a reference track on here, I can just flip between one and the other, and that's very, very useful. Sometimes I just throw, when I know the kind of track I want to make, I'll throw my reference track right on there at the start, or maybe at the end I will. But either way, it's a really easy workflow, and I like that it doesn't require third-party plugins. Like there are third-party plugins that do this kind of thing, but this just makes it easier. And typically, if I were to pull in a reference track, it's a bit of an annoying dance of like you have it up here, and then you have all your other all your other stems, then you have to mute them and turn this one on, then mute that one or whatever. Here let's just put this back. Here it's just always there. And if I do feel like this is in the way and I want that extra vertical space while I'm working on a track, what I do is I just disable the track, and then I hit this guy, which is the show deactivated tracks button. So when it's deactivated, it's hidden. Like if I had one up here and I deactivated it, it goes away, but comes back when I turn that setting off or on. Yeah, I turn on the setting to show deactivated tracks. But yeah, that is that feature. And the last cool things are that this reference track, I have some little utilities on the master that play nicely with it. So let's just enable that again. For example, I have this oscilloscope that I just thought this one was fun to do. And I'm just gonna put this here. What it is I have the signal being rectified positively on the mix as it's coming into here. This doesn't actually get outputted at all. But I rectify the signal so that it only shows positive for my track, and for the reference track, it only shows negative. And you can kind of compare them one to the other and see what their shape is. And then this just changes it from left to mid. Doesn't really matter. It's just a cool thing. I don't use it that much, but it's a neat thing to just compare what the tracks look like. More useful to me is this one over here under the spectrograms. I have this reference spectrogram, and it just overlays them one on top of the other. So in blue, it's my track. This one up here, for good measure, I'll make that blue. Down here, orange. Yeah, you can just see how one track compares to the other. Probably have to do some gain matching here. Very, very useful to compare reference tracks, doing that. Yeah, I think that's it. This is just a cool thing about Bitwig, is that you can like take stuff like this where you have signal 1, which is like your entire project going out to the master, and this other track, you can just pull that reference track signal and do cool stuff with it. So I'm always adding new little tools and stuff to the master as I need. But yeah, that's just an overview of some of the stuff I'm doing in my template. Hopefully it's maybe useful. Thanks for watching.